Welcome back. We're here at DeLoach Vineyards in our brand new Appellation tasting room. You may notice around us, we are surrounded by profiles of all of our great vineyard designate growers, as well as samples from their vineyards. It's a great new tasting experience we have here, and today we are going to taste through some of the wines from your May Club shipment with our winemaker, Brian Maloney.
Thanks, Laura. So the first wine we're going to try today is the 2011 Estate Pinot Noir. That's coming from the property right here. This is a really exciting wine for everyone at the winery because it's our own vineyard. It's what we replanted back in 2005. Had our first harvest in 2010, a very small harvest that year. A little bit more to work with in 2011 as the vineyard's matured, and I think this is a great example of what that wine's potential is going forward. So aromatically to me, what really comes out is the perfume of this wine, and that's one of the signatures, I think, of the estate. We were able to do a whole cluster fermentation with one of the clones, the 828, in 2011. Really gives a lot of spice, a lot of just really interesting aromatic characteristics. So things that I think really are part of our signature, but also something that shows how special this area is, that we can get those ripe stems and able to utilize them in the fermentation. We aged this wine for just over a year in barrel. Really gives it a lot of complexity on the palate, and well, we'll take a sip. You just get that silkiness right along the way. When you have nice ripe tannins to work with, excuse me, it's coming all the way through. When you have nice ripe tannins to work with, that silkiness is coming from the stem tannins that we have, and I mean it's part of that coatingness, that fullness, that richness that we look for with Pinot Noir from the Olivet area, and I think just a fantastic example of what a great vineyard can do in a vintage like 2011. So thank you. Enjoy. Cheers.
Cheers. The next wine in your May shipment for your Pinot Society is our 2010 Green Valley Vineyard Pinot Noir. What can you tell us about this?
Well, 2010 in the Green Valley was a very hard vintage, actually. It was very low crop, very cold. They had a lot of struggles with mildew and things like that, and so we were pretty severe out in the vineyard. One of the typical backbones to this wine is the Swicegood Vineyard, which is located off of Grandview. Fantastic site, but in 2010, because of the nature of the harvest and the growing season, her harvest was only about 10% of normal, and so what a wine that usually makes up 50% of this blend ended up only being a very small fraction of it. Instead, we had a lot more of the Ferguson and the Ghiberti vineyards. Now, those are smaller sites that we work with, but really are fantastic as well. Just a little bit different characteristics with Ghiberti off of Harrison Grade, and the Ferguson vineyard off of Ferguson Court being a little bit cooler locations and not quite as ripe and rich as we typically get with the Swicegood. It's made for a fascinating contrast. If you taste through like the 08, 09, 10, and even the 11 Green Valley, you can definitely see this has a little bit more of a tannic edge and a colder climate characteristic to it. And really I lend that to this, the Swicegood being a smaller portion of the blend itself. Now in typical Green Valley fashion though, there is still a lot of fruit to this. And right away you get that kind of, the cherry flavor characteristic, the strawberries, those bright red fruit characteristics. Those are very common in the Green Valley. If there was a signature fruit characteristic to me for Green Valley, it would be those red fruits, those really bright red fruits. Something you get when you're in a cool location but get ample sunshine like you can on the ridgetops of the Green Valley. And then on the palate you have a density that typically our Green Valley is a little bit fleshier than this, but this one has a lot of density, a lot of tannic structure, a little bit more of a linearness to it, but not necessarily the same plushness you saw in the 09. It'll be interesting to see them age out over time. I think this one will probably go the distance, so enjoy. Cheers.
All right, so the next wine we have is our 2010 Massout Vineyard Pinot Noir, which is kind of a follow-up from February shipment, which had our 2009 Massout Vineyard Pinot Noir. Now, Brian, what can you tell us about the difference between maybe the two?
Well, it's a dramatically different growing season between 9 and 10 up in Mendocino. This is farmed by my friends Jake and Ben Fetzer. Great guys, they're generation farmers in Mendocino, and they have this very unique site that is incredibly complex when you really think about it, because it's a canyon that opens out all the way to the Anderson Valley, so they get a lot of cool air that comes in and funnels in, especially in a cool vintage like 2010. At the same time, where they're located is where that canyon empties out to is the Ukiah Valley, which is a much warmer location. And so it's that borderline between hot and cold that they're constantly struggling with. And in cold years, they really can suffer. And so in 2010, it's a very small crop, very concentrated, really tiny berries. Where in 2009, it was a much more abundant crop, had a much more gentle growing season. And so you saw a lot more richness, but not necessarily the tannic structure you see in the 10. The 10 is a very low yielding vintage for them up there, just small berries, small, dense flavor characteristics, but still that real big plushness that you expect from the suit, just maybe not quite the opulent fruit characters you got out of 2009. To me, you start to see this in the wine itself. While we do have those plum characteristics of black plums, the plum skin nature of this wine, you also see a little bit of that smoky, roasted, really cool climate growing season that you'll see where the collector yeast, the wild yeast that grows out in the vineyard, has covered the grapes themselves and actually lended the flavor characteristics of the fermentation. And then on the palate, you do have that richness, but much more tannic intensity than you would have in the 9, where the 9 was big and fleshy. This is a little bit more narrow. And while you do have that spreadiness, it's not quite as rich. But obviously, you guys are going to be the judge of that. You'll have your 9s, you'll have your 10s. Taste and compare and let me know. The 10's probably my favorite of the 2 vintages. Not to say anything bad about the 9. It's just, it was a very struggling year up there. And usually when the vintage struggles, the grapes really succeed to show themselves at their utmost. So cheers, enjoy.
Well, thanks for joining Brian and I today and tasting through your May Club shipment. And Brian, thanks for joining us as well.
Well, thank you, Laura, for having me here. And everyone, please stop by, come see our new Appellation tasting room and all the new experiences at DeLoach. We're looking forward to having you here. Cheers.
Cheers.